You heard the governor talking about his State of the State address last night. Joining us on the phone line, C.J. Szafir, president of the Institute for Reforming Government. Good morning, C.J.
Steve, how we doing?
Good. You've been on the show many times before. I wanted to get your thoughts on, from a more conservative perspective, on the actions and the words of the governor last night, at least what he's asking for.
Yeah, first off, Happy New Year. And I'd also remark to begin with is I didn't quite understand what exactly is the state of the state. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but, if it's a State of the State address, I actually kind of want to know what the state of the state is.
You want that declarative sentence that says, here's the state of the state.
The state of the state is strong.
Yes.
Or not.
Yeah.
Look, let's start off with the good. I really like the fact that, he started the speech. He reflected on the deaths due to COVID. It's a humbling reminder of the time that we're still in. He praised the kindness of strangers, and really, it's a reminder we're all in this together. And so many people have chipped in, especially in the Milwaukee area. Doing it by Zoom, we were all saved a lot of time because there was no applause, which meant that it was much shorter. But look, I came away thinking I had a couple of questions, and what I struggled with is, what is the state of our K-12 schools? I mean, we're having this massive debate, it certainly seems. School districts all over the state are trying to reopen and are reopening, and yet we have some, especially the biggest school districts, including Milwaukee Public Schools, that's still not open in person. And that's leading to a potentially a generation of students, low-income minority students in Milwaukee, that are being left behind. And, I'd really like to know where the governor stands on that. I mean, you don't have to go too far to go into Chicago, where you have the CEO of Chicago Public Schools that's trying to get the schools open in person as much as possible. Milwaukee is very, very slow. In fact, in the words of columnist Alan Borsick for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, he thinks that they're slow walking. I also had some concerns with, where are we economically? The Wisconsin Center for Research on Wisconsin Economy at University of Wisconsin, they publish all this really good data that shows, all the economic issues we're facing. But according to them, foot traffic for bars and restaurants and small businesses is down 28% in the past year. I mean, we have a crisis with restaurants, with bars, and with small businesses. And I didn't quite get the feeling of what exactly is the plan to get these businesses open safely, but also, we need to figure out how we can get some of these businesses open again, and what are the policy tools that we're going to be using to create a really good business environment in 2021.
Well, going back to the schools thing, I mean, is your point of view that we should just open up the schools, or, I mean, is it nuanced? What is it exactly?
Well, look, I mean, I think the governor, it would be much more refreshing if he would take a stronger stand at this moment at getting these schools open and whatever tools that they need to get open in person. It deeply, deeply concerns me that there is low-income students. Milwaukee Public Schools, you and I have discussed the problems there at length, that you have low-income students that in 2 months, they're going to be doing virtual education for a solid year, 12 months without in-person learning. That is something that I really struggle with. And I would like, more of a concerted effort to get those students back in the classroom, especially because Wisconsin has the largest racial achievement gap in the country, and that was pre-COVID. And I'm very concerned of what it's going to look like come summer, come next year when we get out of it.
Big picture on education, does it surprise you that given that the governor came out of the education environment, that we're at where we're at?
I guess I would say, the teachers' unions have obviously been lobbying him very hard to actually shut down schools just a few months ago, and he has rebuffed that. And he did mention just before when you interviewed him that teachers were going to be next up to get the vaccines. I think these are difficult decisions. But I think this is why we elect people. And I think it does surprise me that we're not being more aggressive in dealing with some of these school boards in some of these bigger cities in Wisconsin that I think are just slow walking the reopening process.
What do you make of the problems, and we are very low ranked when it comes to the Midwest and nationally, of getting these shots in people's arms for the COVID vaccines?
Yeah, you certainly think that this is one of the under-discussed stories at the moment that you wonder is starting to pop. And you certainly see Senator Tammy Baldwin and Congressman Brian Stile in a joint letter raising these issues. I think it's very troubling, and I think this is something that we're going to start to, as deaths are increasing due to COVID, as COVID cases are on the uptick. I think this is something that people are going to start. They don't, some of these stories that are in the news that you're reporting on don't make sense, right? I mean, I'm not an expert here, but look, at the end of the day, Wisconsin's been given over 400,000 doses of vaccines, but only 135,000 of those have been used. And as we kind of see that, as we get upticks in deaths in COVID, that's just not going to be acceptable. I mean, we need to figure out how we're going to get these vaccines in the arms as soon as possible. And maybe this tiered approach that the governor outlined before, maybe that's not the best way. Maybe we need to look more towards Florida, which Governor DeSantis, he gave priority to healthcare workers first. But since then, he's opened it up to anyone over the age of 65, which has allowed my mom to get vaccinated. I'm very thankful for that. But if she was in Wisconsin, like you referenced, she'd be waiting. And I think pretty soon, if not right now, that's just not going to be acceptable.
We're talking to C.J. Szafir, president of the Institute for Reforming Government. We got about a minute left, but anything else that stood out in the speech last night's governor's state of the state?
Yeah, I mean, look, a couple quick things. I think the unemployment benefits, I think that crisis, it kind of offended me a little bit that he blamed the previous administration. I think voters and constituents despise that. Look, there was 700,000 claims in the fall that were not processed on time, and less than 1% of calls to the unemployment help center went through. That's not acceptable. That was a bureaucratic failure, and really it's hard for him to do anything other than own that. He called 2021 the year of broadband. I think that, I'm in favor of smart investments into infrastructure like broadband. But look, at the end of the day, 2021 is going to be the year about beating COVID, reopening the Wisconsin economy, and rocking and rolling. And I think that's kind of how I would picture it. I wasn't entirely sure, and I'm not entirely sure with the focus on broadband, especially he discussed it or he justified it through virtual education. But, geez, I think the demand to be in person is going to be astronomical.
Always great to talk to you. C.J. Szafir, president of the Institute for Reforming Government. Let's do it down the road. Hey, real quick, when do you – I asked this question of a lot of guests. I only got about 15 seconds. When do you think we'll get back to the normal in this state?
Summerfest.
All right. That's your prediction?
Yes. It's going to be good.
All right, man. Always great to talk to you.
All right. Thank you.